we have been blessed. That's really all I can say. We have been blessed with two incredible games to start this conference championship playoffs. I honestly I cannot remember a better first two games. I really can't. And so we got to talk about them. We got to discuss them. What does this mean for the playoffs moving forward? What are the predictions? Obviously, both games went into overtime. So, does a certain team have an edge in this situation? Obviously, the winning team's up 1-0, but how much is that going to affect the rest of the series? Obviously, these series are pretty close. Let's start with the first game that happened a couple days ago. The San Antonio Spurs get a big win over the Oklahoma City Thunder and flip that home court advantage that the Thunder had as being the higher seed. Um, Thunder kind of come back a bit. We had two comebacks, obviously one much greater than the other, but a good comeback from the Thunder leads to a tie game, which leads to overtime one, which leads to overtime two. Fourth quarter comeback from OKC. Obviously, we've all seen the shot from Wemby from the logo to tie the game. Ultimately, ended up sending it into the first overtime. We go overtime one. We go overtime two. Overtime two. San Antonio pulls away and gets the victory. A truly legendary night from Victor Wembanyama. 41 points, 24 rebounds, 3 blocks. The man is unstoppable. On our friend SGA's MVP night. Now, SGA went for 24, had 12 assists. Pretty good night for him as well, but a minus 15 when he's on the floor was not great. It was only 7 for 23 shooting field goals. It's tough if you are OKC and SGA. I understand a little bit of why SGA got the MVP that night, right? He voted on. I can see why some voters voted him over a Wembanyama, over a Jokic. Wemby, I think, to be fair, did probably not play enough minutes during the season. And so we kind of saw, hey, this is a player. He's incredibly dominant when he's on the floor, but he doesn't play very many minutes. He's definitely not leading the team in usage or being really used to his full potential. Why I was excited to see him in the playoffs, because I knew, okay, playoffs, these people need. If you're the Spurs, you got to win the games, right? There's no resting or load management in the playoffs. You play if you're able to play. I mean, we've seen that already. People coming back from injuries, etc. You got to lock in. They're going to play Wemby. We're going to see what he can do. What happens when Wemby plays 50 minutes? Now, obviously, this is an overtime game. He wouldn't have gotten there if he didn't play double overtime. But still, what happens when he's one of the most played players on your team? Well, you get 41 and 24, I guess is our resounding answer. He proved tonight that SGA is not the best player in the league, is realistically probably not the most valuable player in the league. In fact, plus minus would suggest that maybe this OKC's a little better with him off the floor. Is he really helping a lot? He actually has, I think, one of the worst playoff plus minuses. I mean, it's not looking great for him as an MVP candidate. Wemby showed up and said, hey, you may have won the MVP, but I am the best player. I am the most dominant. The issue with SGA is in the playoffs so far, a couple things have happened. Number one, they allow a little more contact. This happens every single year. They allow a little more contact in the playoffs. So he's not getting to the free throw line as much. Maybe even, and also probably taking a bit more contact trying to get to the free throw line. So you look at his free throw numbers, dropped quite tremendously coming in now to the playoffs. And his shooting percentage has also plummeted. Now, part of that is he's not getting as many calls as he used to. He's maybe not getting as many shots. Defenses actually play defense, right? Teams actually play legit defense. They put in effort on defense in the playoffs. In the regular season, and again, this is a problem with both baseball and basketball, and I would say hockey even to an extent as well, although hockey's a little lower scoring, so, maybe not. But the games don't matter as much. Obviously, you want to win them. You want to have good seeds, etc. during the regular season. You want to be successful. But there's certain aspects of the game that just do not get the effort that they do in the playoffs. Chet going 8 points. I mean, Wemby kind of shut him down, right? When was the last time Chet had only 8 points, 8 rebounds on 2 of 7 shooting? Jalen Williams back? Kind of. Good for them to have him back. I'm happy to see him back on the floor, but he's not obviously 100% in any way. He only played 10 minutes. Caruso ended up being your best player on the night. 31 points, 11 for 19, 8 for 14. I mean, Caruso's not going to give you 8 3-pointers every night. That you just can't count on that. And these are the kinds of games where you say, okay, SGA, you need to take over. And you really, it's your best player needs to take over. This has been, this was a complaint against LeBron, maybe with the Heatles. Ironically, in a game against the Dallas Mavericks, who just let go of their coach. But you're the best player on the team. You got to play like it. You got to take over. You got to be a commanding presence. You got to go for it. And Wemby, I said this a couple weeks ago in that game against the T-Wolves, where I said Wemby took over in the fourth quarter. And that was that game where he had a little bit of foul trouble, if you'll remember. He jumped in and dominated the game and demonstrated that he is, it's fair to say, I think at this point, he is the best player in the NBA right now. How historic can he be, I think, is really the question that we're all asking. As far as this series goes, before we jump into maybe a little discussion about that, I think this was one of the easiest bets I've ever made in my life for Spurs to win the series. I didn't particularly pick a specific number of games. I'm not sure. Obviously, this went into double overtime. These teams are fairly evenly matched. I'm not saying OKC is terrible. But when you look at the matchups in this series, it's pretty clear to me that the Spurs have a major advantage. So let's just walk through this. What is OKC really good at? Well, they have SGA, a great guard, who gets to the free throw line a lot, good in the mid-range, theoretically fairly good around the basket. They have great defense from Dort, Caruso, etc. Elite defense. Chet as well. I think Chet was runner-up, I think, on Defensive Player of the Year. So you've got great defense, a really good guard, and then you have Chet, who's kind of, a physical specimen, right? Well, the San Antonio Spurs kind of match up against them perfectly. Similar to actually how we said last series, hey, Timberwolves actually kind of match up well against the Spurs. They have good three-point shooting. They've got, a defensive presence of a big man in Rudy Gobert inside. Maybe he can help, at least not give up quite so many rebounds to Wemby from a size perspective. He can at least compete. Timberwolves might match up okay against the Spurs. I actually don't think the Timberwolves would match up very well against the Thunder. I don't think Rudy would have to get stretched. Chet would stretch him out of the lane, cause some issues. San Antonio feels to me almost built to beat OKC. They have incredible defensive guards. Castle and Harper, the rookie. Oh my goodness. I mean, can we say more? This is what's real scary about the Spurs when we talk about their long-term future. Harper, Castle, Wemby is a terrifying trio, and they're all super young. Like they're all 22 or younger, right? These are kids coming into the league right now. They have great defensive guards that are going to make things difficult for OKC, specifically SGA, who likes to be in the mid-range, obviously likes to be finishing around the basket. Not a particularly great three-point shooter. OKC is not a particularly great three-point shooting team overall. And then you have Wemby. Wemby is absolutely dominant in the lane defensively. The best way, and I know I saw some stuff online talking about the Warriors and Steph Curry, but realistically, Steph Curry is kind of the model for how you can try and beat/compete with Wemby. You need somebody, and really, it's not even you need somebody. You need multiple people that are elite shooters to pull him away from the basket. If he is allowed to just sit near the basket and rotate around the key, watching for mid-range jumpers, you're never going to get a good look. He is that dominant in the lane. He's that long. You have to stretch him out to the three-point line to clear the lane to have an opportunity to get to the basket. That is kind of the formula for having a chance against Wemby. It's why Steph Curry has scored so many points against the Spurs in his career, especially recently, right? That is the way to beat him. I don't know if it's not going to always be successful. It's not a full kryptonite like, Wemby's useless if you've got a lot of shooters. But that is just mechanically how you beat a team with an incredibly dominant big in the lane. You get him out of the lane. Because you can't just sit there and shoot threes all day. You shoot them at too low of a percentage. You want to be able to get some nice, easy baskets. Sometimes you need a bucket, right? And you got to be able to force him out of the lane. OKC can't really do that. We look at OKC's shooting numbers. Jay was 2 of 7 from three-point lane. That's not going to cut it. Alex Caruso shot incredibly well from 3. He just didn't get any help. I mean, Aaron Wiggins 0 for 3. Lou Dort 1 for 5. Chet was 2 for 4, but I mean, he only just look at these stats here. He's 2 for 7. He just he couldn't do anything in the lane. He couldn't do anything in the mid-range. He was relegated to shooting a couple of threes. And if you can relegate Chet, who's arguably their second best scorer, did I said Jalen Williams earlier? I meant this Jalen Williams. I know it's confusing. Him being back, I that was my mix up. My bad. Him being back is big. Shot a lot of shots, but we talk about the big three: Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Jalen, I would say, for coming off of injury, there it is. That's what you could expect. That's a good night for Jalen. Chet and Shai, Shai got 24 points, but on 7 of 23. That's not great. And Chet just disappeared. Why? Wemby's there. Wemby's there. And Wemby can guard Chet outside, inside, in the mid-range, wherever. Look at the Spurs' big three. Wemby, Harper, Castle. It's not incredible, but Wemby's incredibly dominant. They got some good help from Vassell. Realistically, the person who's not on here is De'Aaron Fox. He's really part of their big three. So the fact that they were able to get a win with no De'Aaron Fox, I think bodes very well for the Spurs. They match up very well against the Thunder. They can hang with them defensively. There's nobody you can SGA can't pick a guy and go at him. Everybody here is capable on defense. Especially from a guard perspective, Harper and Castle, absolutely fantastic. Shout out Harper. He's been incredible this playoffs. Rookie, one of the best rookies I've seen, over the years as far as this good, this young is it's very impressive, especially as a guard. Sometimes a big man can be somewhat dominant, but as a guard, oh my goodness. Yeah. Plus 14, plus minus. He was fantastic. He was. He really, really was. Castle, obviously more of a defensive guy, but shooting okay. Not great, but enough. And you get a little help from Champagny. And Vassell played well, as another player. Harper, again, I can't say enough about him. Coming in, Fox hurt, not playing, kind of thrust into this position, and he was very good. He was. He just flat out was. Wemby's the story, though. So, just briefly, we'll discuss Wemby's potential here. Let's have this discussion, because that's what everybody wants to talk about. Are we witnessing the greatest basketball player of all time? Potentially. I think that's the answer from everybody, and if you were already saying he's the best ever, I don't know what to tell you. You're slightly delusional. We got to see a little bit more. Let's let him get one ring first before we crown him the best player of all time. But he's definitely capable of doing it. And you see the passion which he plays with. You see the way his teammates seem to love playing with him. The true dominance, the ability to take over a game, the ability to just do things that we've never seen before. That he really does do things that, to be honest, are impossible for some people to do. Nobody's ever been this tall, this good of a ball handler, right? This dominant defensively, all at the same time, all at this age. So where is his ceiling? Where does this go? To me, he can make the LeBron Michael Jordan discussion about the GOAT completely irrelevant if he stays healthy. And we might be able to put a caveat there of also, he needs at least Harper or Castle to stay healthy as well. But, I think theoretically you could move some other pieces around and keep him having a running mate. Obviously, this is a team game. You can't just win it by yourself. You need some help. But they have this young core that is so dominant at such an early age, and they're having so much success. Wemby could be the greatest of all time. There is one if, and this is the thing that I think everybody is hoping and praying for. I think if you are a basketball fan, you're hoping for this. Obviously when you're playing Wemby, you don't want him on the floor, but nobody would wish an injury on somebody. Uh, you know, he's a great player, and we don't want to see him hurt. But that is the one question. He is incredibly tall, and typically a player that tall, that long, not particularly thick, but again, who is particularly thick when you're that tall? Players of that size historically have had some injury problems, and Wemby has already, we've had some kind of load management stuff during the season, some injury concerns at different moments. We don't want to see him hurt, and if he stays healthy, if it's possible for him to stay healthy, I think we're looking at probably the future greatest of all time. I think the league is in a position where a Spurs dynasty is possible, and with some good competition as well, which will help his resume, because it'll be like, wow, he beat, you know, he keeps coming out of the West when the West has got Jokic and SGA and the Thunder and Edwards and Minnesota, right? Like, you could go down the list. There's some good teams in the West. The West is deep. If Wemby keeps coming out of that, if he stays healthy, if he stays as dominant as he has been so far, we're looking at the greatest of all time. If he starts getting hurt, we'll have an issue, obviously. We might be looking at a Joel Embiid type situation where you go, wow, I mean, when he was healthy and on, he was incredible, but he's not healthy consistently. And so I wish the best for Wemby. I would love to see him stay healthy because it is incredible to watch him play basketball. Even, I'm not a Spurs fan. I think it's pretty obvious if you've watched this channel. I'm a bit of a Warriors fan. I obviously don't want to see Wemby out there dominating the West. I'd like the Warriors. I want Curry to get another ring, but Wemby has that potential. If he stays healthy, he becomes the greatest of all time. We should have a greatest of all time discussion, by the way, sometimes. So let's talk about the next game. The game of last night. Our second game one overtime. This series, I'd pick the Knicks. I think most people picked the Knicks. Ironically, most people did not pick the Spurs. They were, I think, a 3-1, almost 4-1 underdog on Kalshi before the series started. So Cavs, Knicks. Knicks, I think we all expected to win. It's game one at home. Cavs had to come off of, a emotional series against the Pistons. Knicks didn't have to worry too much. They're coming off of rest. We saw what happened to OKC. It looked a little slow coming out against the Spurs. Spurs kind of jumped out to a lead. Did not really happen. First quarter, Knicks got a 7-point lead after the first quarter. They're looking pretty good. Then they end up going down. I think the biggest margin was 22 at one point. Come absolutely storming back to end the game. Send it to overtime and retain home court advantage. It was immensely impressive. Absolutely stunning from the Knicks to come back. It also is a little telling of a classic Cleveland scenario. Let's look at the box score. And let's once again look at our friend James Harden. 5 of 16, 6 turnovers. You don't really need to say much more. This is classic James Harden. This is now, not a statistical anomaly. I'm not saying he's a terrible player. I'm not saying that he can't have great games. But 25% of the time in the playoffs, and he's played in a lot of playoff games at this point. We have a sample size. This is not one series. 25% of the time, actually a little over, in his career, James Harden has more turnovers than made field goals. That is not how you win playoff basketball. More turnovers, 6, than made field goals, 25% of the time. That's just not going to be winning basketball. Honestly, Donovan Mitchell didn't play bad. 12 of 23, 30 points. His plus minus isn't great, but, that is what it is. Evan Mobley didn't even play bad. He oftentimes is, kind of my barometer for how the Cavs are going to do. If he gets, double-digit points and rebounds, normally that's a pretty good game for the Cavs, and they're in a good position. But Schroeder was 1 for 9. That's not great. 3 points. And Strus only 8 points. You're expecting Harden, big three, Harden, Mitchell, Mobley. You need Harden to do something. And 5 made field goals and 6 turnovers is not going to win. Knicks, Brunson was fantastic down the stretch. Truly amazing down the stretch. The depth that you could see here, very good for the Knicks. Very good for the Knicks. You got 5 guys here in double digits. That's winning basketball, right? Again, let's go through the list here. Brunson, as our lead scorers here. Brunson and Bridges, they're making more field goals than turnovers. Now, Anthony, but he's very efficient here. Just under 50%. James Harden, under 30% shooting. He just, only took 14 shots. He did have 7 turnovers, but it is what it is. OG coming back. This is big for the Knicks. I didn't have an incredible game, but got to the line a decent amount and played some good defense. This, to me, felt like the Cavs did Cavs things again. I just don't trust them. The Pistons didn't have enough offense, right? That's really what it came down to in that series, in my opinion, is the Pistons just did not have the offense that they needed. And so the Cavs, who can score, just were able to outscore the Pistons and overcome a good Pistons defense. Don't get me wrong. But the Knicks have an offense, and they have a defense. They're not one-dimensional. It's not we just looked. There's 5 players with double digits points. The Pistons aren't doing that. It's Cade Cunningham, and can he get some help, hopefully? So Cavs run into a Knicks team, and to be honest, when they're up by 22, we're thinking, hey, this is a big moment for the Cavs. They're actually showing up in a big game on the road, can steal home court advantage, steal game 1 from the Knicks in the Garden. This is a massive moment. And the Knicks came storming back. We said this a couple series ago. Go watch the videos when I said the Knicks had that really impressive win. You can go find it. I asked the question, was this the most impressive win of the playoffs? In that they got down, they didn't give up, they clawed their way back and won a game. And that was also a game that, like, it didn't feel like a must win. It was a game you could have rollen over. But they didn't. They weathered the storm. They bounced back. They battled back, and they got the win and went on to win that series very easily. This felt similar. Down big. Massive comeback. At home, retain home court advantage, and get the win. Not saying this is going to be a sweep. I honestly don't think it probably will be, because Harden does that 25% of the time, but the other, 75% of the time, he's got some serious success. It's just, you can't, essentially you're saying we're going to lose 25% of our games, because 25% of the time Harden is going to be absolutely atrocious. And that's not a winning formula. To me, this feels like they sucked the life out of Cleveland. Cleveland had this hope, and they just fell apart, and I don't know where they go from here. Game 2 will be very interesting. We'll see what kind of fight Cleveland has. They went down 2-0 in the last series, and we thought they were done, and they came back. But they had a moment here. They had a chance. It felt like they had a chance to say, nah, this series is going to be interesting. You're going to have to fight tooth and nail. And then they just collapsed and let it slip away. And that does not bode well for them for the rest of the series. That's my thoughts on these 2 games. If it does become Knicks Spurs, we'll talk about that later. I think the Knicks match up okay, but I don't think any team... realistically, I don't think it matters, Spurs or OKC. I think they're definitely going to be the favorite in that series, regardless of what it comes out to. So that's NBA. Curious, your thoughts down below on both the topics today. What do you think about the NBA playoffs? I think it's pretty clear it's going to be Knicks Spurs finals, but we'll see. Maybe the Cavs, again, they did this kind of last series. It went down 2-0, came roaring back, ended up winning 7. They're definitely a different team at home, so we'll see when we get there. OKC, heart of a champion. Can they bounce back? Can SGA show that he's, a legitimate player? We're going to find out. Is he really an MVP? He's going to have to start playing like one to have any chance of competing against Wemby and the Spurs. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out, for stopping by. Those of you that did. We're going to hopefully do this a little more consistently in the mornings here. And, it was fun. I appreciate everybody who hung out, and we will see you tomorrow.